Hi, I'm Tom from the Chemical Brothers, and you can come and see me at Frequency. We're both studying history, and it was that's where we met, but the main place we sort of came together was there wasn't many people who were on that course or who were students really who used to go out clubbing that much. And in Manchester where we went, that's what the main club was, the Hacienda, which was like the first sort of big house club, techno club in England really. And it was the best place to hear dance music at the time. So we just got together through a combined love of doing that really. Sort of, you know, when you're in a place away from home, you get drawn towards people who have similar interests. And we just spend all our time in the record shops and in the clubs. And it's sort of from a shared love of music that we got to make music together. Well, before that, I made music, and I was a musician, you know, all the time when I was growing up. When I was from about 14, whatever, I used to play with drum machines and guitars and stuff and listen to music. But it was mainly hanging out in record shops and stuff in Manchester and getting friends with this guy, Justin Robertson. And then you saw that he was, you know, he was much like you, and he had just got his record collection and was DJing. You know, we just used to get so many records, and then we found ourselves we're living in a house together, sharing a house with some other students. And it was like, we suddenly, you know, looked down on the floor and there's like hundreds and hundreds of records, and I may as well do something with these records. And it's been good for us DJing, because it's quite a good incentive to make music. You know, we make records for us to play with. And then by DJing, that influences how we make our records, so it's cool. We were just students in Manchester. We made a record, and we didn't really figure that, you know, when we first did it, Ed pressed up just like 10 copies of it, so it wasn't like a sort of thing that we thought anyone would even hear outside of our circle of friends, let alone some producers in America. But it was after a couple of months or something, we sort of realised that perhaps we couldn't carry on being called that. You know, and when we got to put out our first EP, which had Chemical Beats on it, that's when people first started to really hear what we did. And they just phoned us up and said, actually, that's our name. And we agreed with them that it was their name. And that's why we called ourselves the Chemical Brothers, really, because at the time we had this track called Chemical Beats, which seemed to sort of encapsulate the idea that we had of like acid house and hip-hop coming together. The way we make our records is fairly loose, really, because, you know, we're DJs, but we can engineer our records, and we can program and play the guitar and the keyboard and stuff. It's just all these different sort of things that we can do, you know, to different levels of skill, whatever. But it means it's very flexible the way you write. You can either sit there with a guitar and work out a little chord sequence that's nice, or you can, you know, hear a beat on a record and chop it up and twist it around, and, you know, and that's another part. And when all these things come together, you know, that's our sound, really. You know, we spend a lot of time programming synthesizers and stuff, and we've got our own little studio where we just experiment, really, for as long as it takes. But it's loose, there's no sort of set way, which I like, you know, it's cool. And also the fact that we're quite self-sufficient in that department, that we just stay in our studio trying to come up with ideas that excite us, really. You go out to a club with your friends and stuff, and you know, the music is the sort of soundtrack for that. And for some people it's the main reason they go out, and for other people it's just something that's going on whilst they're getting, you know, out of their mind. So I think that's why it's successful, really. You can take it how you want it. I mean, but in England now, it's like such a huge thing. You can get your package holiday to Ibiza and go with all your mates and have, you know, like a whole 7 days of clubbing and stuff. So it is weird when you think of something that started as a very underground idea, sort of, you know, counterculture almost kind of thing, of raves and parties that were totally illegal and totally unsanctified, have suddenly become like, you know, this really big corporate thing. But I think it's still a lot of good records being made and people enjoying them, so.
Hi, this is Ed from the Chemical Brothers. Come and check us out at Frequency. We met at Manchester University, and Tom was in a band, actually, like an electronic band, Ariel, and I became friends with him, and we lived together. He had a little studio in his bedroom, you know, a couple of keyboards and a sampler, and used to sort of play around on that. And we went record shopping together and started DJing together. And just kind of went from there, really. After we left college, we made a record together, Song to Siren, and we enjoyed that. And it just seemed to go well. You know, we seemed to get on, and DJs started playing our records, and we used to enjoy going to clubs together. We put on our own clubs. It's just sort of a friendship, and we just got things done together, you know, things would happen. And we made these good records as well. I got into it first through DJing with him and putting records together with a mixer, and then and he had stuff in the studio, in his studio bedroom, just sort of played around with them. But I think, you know, to become the Dust Brothers and then the Chemical Brothers, it was just the records hit off. You know, the first record we made, Song to Siren, and then Chemical Beats, were records that DJs played immediately. You know, they had a big effect. They sounded totally different to records that were around at the moment. And you know, DJs in England, people like Andy Weatherall and Justin Robertson, were immediately like got something out of those records. So, you know, a lot of people make electronic music and put out dance records, but a lot of them just kind of melt into the background. But these were records that people heard and were like, there's something different about this, and that was kind of our way in, really. People took an interest because they did sound different. When we were putting out the first record and we put it under the Dust Brothers, it was, you know, we were just DJing in like a tiny little room in South Manchester, you know, and so we didn't really think it would be of any importance what our name was. You know, it wasn't like we were, you know, people would read it and think, oh, the Dust Brothers from LA are going to be playing in, you know, it's like a tiny, small room we were playing in, so, you know, and then we put out more records. And when we were doing remixes that kind of came over here, and it was still under the Dust Brothers name, that's when the confusion came and we got a telephone call, you know, we had to change our name. But it was all right. It's worked out quite well, Chemical Brothers name. Well, the records have always been good, you know, from the early records to the late records. There's always been, you know, a sense that you're listening to something special, I hope, anyway. And the fact that we're still into dance music, you know, as a thing, you know, we quite happily put 12 inches, which DJs will play, but then we enjoy this other thing of putting a whole album together which works in the same way, you know, like a great rock album will work with lots of moods and lots of texture to it. But we're still just as happy sort of DJing in a nightclub and with our 12-inch records that we've made, and the idea that DJs that we respect will play our records, and that's just as important to us as getting records on the radio or getting critics to like. I think we're just fully absorbed into it, you know, over the last sort of 10 years. That's been our thing, is being, you know, hearing good dance music, but we also enjoy these albums, you know. I couldn't really explain, but it's just, you know, we put a lot into it, whether it be the live show, the DJing, or the albums, the artwork, you know, it's all quite a lot of thought. We enjoy it. I was thinking today, I don't buy much contemporary music, you know, apart from electronic music. I'm not interested in rock music that's made today at all, or singer-songwriters, you know. So maybe it's just the most exciting music that's being made at the moment, you know. If I want to listen to a singer-songwriter, I listen to, you know, Neil Young or Bob Dylan. It's just boring, isn't it? Most music outside the sort of electronic music, really, to be brutally honest. That's probably why.